The sound of the rain pounded against the window panes as Stiles Stilinski stared at his reflection in the black screen of his computer. The office where he worked in Washington, D.C. was small but functional. A dark wooden desk covered in messy papers, an old coffee maker in the corner, and a single lamp casting a dim light over the room. It wasn't the FBI or some major investigative agency, but on his path to becoming a private detective, he had found a sort of peace far away from Beacon Hills, or at least, that's what he thought. The case in front of him didn't seem different from others. A woman named Elena Donovan had come looking for her missing brother. The strange part wasn't the disappearance itself, but the location. All clues led back to a place he had sworn never to return to: Beacon Hills. The name still sent a chill down his spine. Years had passed since he left the town, leaving behind not just his friends, but also a past filled with supernatural chaos, death, and most importantly, Derek Hale. He closed his eyes for a moment, pinching the bridge of his nose. He couldn't afford to think about that. Not now. So he did what he did best. He grabbed his jacket, picked up his travel bag, and drove back to where it all began. When Stiles passed the "Welcome to Beacon Hills" sign, he felt a tightness in his chest. Nothing seemed to have changed, yet at the same time, everything felt different. The air still smelled of pine and damp earth. The streets appeared just as quiet as ever, but the feeling at the back of his neck, that prickle of warning he had learned never to ignore as a teenager, told him something was wrong. It didn't take long to reach the sheriff's station, because if there was anyone who could tell him what the hell was going on, it was his father. Sheriff Stilinski looked up as Stiles walked in. He had aged a little, had more gray hairs and a tired face, but when he saw his son, his eyes lit up. "For God's sake, tell me you're not here because something exploded again," he said, crossing his arms with a weary smile. "No, at least not yet," Stiles replied, tossing his jacket over his usual chair. "I'm here on business. I'm investigating a disappearance," the sheriff sighed. "I should have known. You always come back when there's trouble. It's my superpower." His father gave him a serious look before pulling a file from his desk. "If the person you're looking for disappeared here, I already have several reports of similar cases. People who just vanish. No signs of struggle, no witnesses. They just go." Stiles frowned. "What about Derek?" The sheriff looked surprised for a second, but only for a moment. "He's still in town. In his own way, he's still protecting it." "Then I guess I'm paying him a visit." His father sighed. "Just be careful, son. Nothing here is what it seems, as if Beacon Hills ever had been." Derek's cabin was exactly where he remembered it, but something had changed. It looked more worn down, like time had hit it harder than any other building in town. He knocked on the door and waited. Nothing. He knocked again. The sound of footsteps on the wooden floor alerted Stiles just before the door opened, and there he was, Derek Hale. It had been a long time since he had last seen him, but the change was obvious. His beard was thicker, his face sharper, but his eyes, they were the same. That mix of intensity and distrust he had always carried. "I knew you'd come back at some point," was the first thing he said, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. "What? Do you have a sixth sense for idiots with problems?" Derek didn't smile, but something in the way he looked at him let Stiles know he was amused. "What are you doing here, Stiles?" The investigator sighed, letting the weight of his bag drop onto the porch floor. "I'm looking for someone. Well, several people, and I have a feeling you know something about it." Derek stayed silent for a moment, and in that instant, Stiles knew he definitely knew something. "Come in," the wolf finally said, stepping aside. Inside the cabin, Derek made coffee while Stiles scrolled through the files on his phone. The photos of the missing people made a knot tighten in his stomach. "It's no coincidence," Derek said, setting down 2 cups without even asking if he wanted one. "I've noticed the patterns. They all disappeared in the same areas, without a trace, without any signs of struggle." Stiles took a sip of the coffee. It tasted exactly as he remembered. "What are we dealing with, Hale?" Derek pressed his lips together. "I don't know, but it's not something I've seen before," and that, coming from Derek, meant trouble. Stiles felt his heartbeat quicken. He had missed this, not just Derek, but this feeling. Being on the edge of danger, knowing that every step he took could be his last, but also knowing that he was never alone. Derek looked at him, and for a moment, the air in the room grew heavier. "I'm not letting you go through this alone, Stiles. Are you telling me you look out for me, Hale?" Stiles teased with a crooked smile. Derek stared at him, serious. "I always have." Stiles' stomach tightened. He knew this was more than just an investigation. He knew that no matter what they found in the coming days, he hadn't just come back for a case. He had come back because his story with Derek had never been finished. And this time, he wasn't going to run.